So, Merlin, I know you have studied with Dr. Suzuki directly. What did you learn? What's your initial idea about, mother tongue and now?
Yeah, so I think what I come to is mother tongue theory is what it is.
Mhm.
So there's a theory of how people acquire language, which is that we start with babbling, we move on to speaking, and then we move on to reading. My experience in terms of translating that theory to learning a musical instrument is that, in a general sense, all of those things, babbling can be tonalization, getting the instrument set up, and all those kinds of things. So we've got a babbling stage, we've got a learning to play by ear stage, and we've got a learning to play by reading stage. But my experience has been that in learning an instrument, um, that these three aspects of tonalization, learning by ear, and learning by reading can have a closer and more overlapping relationship than we may think is necessary. So, for example, students in book one, if I have an 8-year-old babbling stage, is like 2 weeks long. That's all we're going to do. We're not going to spend a year on tonalization
Mhm.
necessarily. Learning to play by ear, that student may learn to play by ear more easily if we introduce a few small reading concepts at the same time.
Mhm.
So, the difference between a 5-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 14-year-old beginning student, I want to keep those things in mind,
Mhm.
to kind of go, I have resources in terms of tonalization, playing by ear, and playing by reading.
Mhm.
How do I use those strategies to help this student move through their own level of progress?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
Less defined than the Suzuki repertoire might give us to think that we've got variations which are there for tonalization. We've got a whole bunch of pieces that are there to learn to play by ear. We've got a whole bunch of pieces that are there to learn to play by reading. Um, my impression this many years after teaching is that those areas are good to know about, but they're not so clearly defined in terms of this is step one, this is step two, this is step three.
Interesting. I I guess I'm doing something similar in my in my pre-twinkle approach. Um, so so like when I'm teaching, I never feel that young kids can sit down for more than 10 minutes, and so when we have a 30-minute private lesson, I always tell my prospective parents that the student parents that this for this 30 minutes it will be uh, 15 more than no more than 15 minutes directly interact with the student, and the other maybe 10 minutes will be with the parents and talk about how to help the child and enjoy and learn at home. Basically that 10 minutes part is talking about how their mother tongue environment at home is being arranged, and a lot of time when the kids are like they need to move, they need to run around, jump around, and come back to the cello. We'll use I guess drawing, draw twinkle, draw your twinkle. That's a visual image. Oh, now you're gonna play twinkle, or draw your image of French folk song, and that goes to when even when they're just in Goten and Rodi, they might have like, oh, they might have a little flashcard for A, where's your A, or D, where's your D, and they use those alphabet cards to make up their songs. Um, so I guess it's echo back to what you're saying that it's not so those three stages are not so defined or so separated in my approach. And I found that helps me to have more variety of ideas and um, tactics to or options. Remember in our previous talks, one of them is about plan A, plan B, plan C, and this is one of my plan F. Yeah.
Yeah, do
Uh,
people have questions about the mother tongue approach?
yeah. If you have any question, please you can raise your hand or you can write your question down on the in the chat box. Merlin, what do you think about the how the mother tongue approach uh, in terms of the students getting older?
Well, I think because they are interrelated. These three things that I've mentioned: tonalization, playing by ear, and playing by reading. That the idea is always to look to the student to see what of those strategies is going to help out. And I just think of a student that I had, I forget the age, maybe a 7-year-old beginner. So to learn the variations by rote, very easy to do because it's the same series of notes all the time and the same series of rhythm all the way through. But what I discovered in doing that was that this particular student had a really great sense of rhythm. So the rhythm was always easy to do. The sense of pitch was not so well defined for this student. So when it came to learning melodies, very difficult to do because she didn't sing on pitch. So the idea of singing la, 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 and finding those notes on the piano didn't work for this student at all. But what did work was opening the music book and seeing that it went G, F, E, and we know where G, F, and E are on the piano. So off she went and learned the piece. But what happened then over the next months was that because she sang along with her own playing, when she played G, she sang G.
Sorry.
Yeah, she sang G. And so her sense of pitch and her ability to sing on pitch improved because she was playing with reading. So for me, it's just really, really interesting. For another student, might have come in and gone G, F, E. Oh yeah, I know exactly where those notes are on the piano. So off they went. And then, so the learning to play by ear for that other particular student was just a natural thing to do. So I see that there are ways that learning to play by ear can assist with reading, and reading can assist with learning to play by ear.
Totally, totally. I feel the same way. But this one is about playing a string instrument when we put tape or not. There's always a big debate. Oh, put tape, the student will never develop their ears. Um, but for kids who have, it's they're less inclined to hear the pitch right away. They do need a visual aid, having something to show them this is the target. Once they hit it, they'll hear it, just like you said, read it, and they hear the pitch. The pitch feeds back to their brain. They hear, then they can relearn the pitch. And I think that the function of a tape is like that. And and also it could be it can be for parents who are less musical, they can help the student. But I always advise the teachers I'm coaching that the tapes are not the goal. The tapes putting the fingers correctly on the tape is just a beginning. Once they hit it and the kinesthetic memory is established, then the oral memory can be established. And once that's done, eventually those tape will be taken off and to replace, so those are replaced by the real oral and the kinesthetic memory. um, and and also going back to what you just said, the example yesterday, I was helping a remedial student who I did not start with. He learned from Suzuki book 1 to 4, but not the Suzuki way. It was always reading, read, play, read, play. and I found that he's not able to count. He was just decoding the number, and now he's really having trouble understanding the position because we need to shift to a different position, which means the same finger will represent different pitch. Um, so that has been a huge obstacle for him because he has not been um, accustomed to looking at the actual notes. He was just only looking at the number, like looking at the number on piano. So yesterday, instead of playing those music, I asked him to sing, and I found out first I was shocked that he couldn't sing in pitch. But I still encourage him to try to discern the rough, approximately this is G D, not G D, but G D E. But so he was still reading the notes and singing it with the pitch he could manage. And after that, he played it beautifully in tune, even though he couldn't sing it in tune. I guess because I gave him the opportunity, we have the opportunity to let his brain process those symbols uh, in its own way without playing, without bowing. Um, that was just amazing. I couldn't. It's the first time it happened to me that because we always say, oh, the students must be able to sing in tune, in order to play in tune. But I have learned this long time ago from a doctoral teacher, Dr. Marta Santos. She told me a lot of kids, or a lot of people can't sing in tune, but they're great musicians. So, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Students can learn around and come back to what they're looking for. It's not always the same step of learning. It's not always oral then visual then memorization, or oral memorization then visual. It could be the other way around: learn from visual and then identify the oral quality. Then the memorization will be more accurate or more rewarding. Yeah.
Yep, all of which tells us that the stages are more related to each other and overlap with each other than we think.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's
And
where that's when the things get tangled, and we have an issue, and we need to be able to, like uh, a seal cocoon, you need to pull out one silk at a time. So in your case, do you have an example of untangle some knots like what you said?
well, I think what happens is that students, they're looking for the shortest way to make improvements. And I think as a teacher, I'm also interested in the shortest way to make improvements as well. What's challenging for students is that they have a very limited bank to choose from. And so they may only do it over and over and over and over, may be their only tool for achieving success. My tools, what have I got? I've got do it with the book, do it without the book, do it as slow as you can, do it as fast as you can, do it in different parts of the piano, because we can play, Go Town Roadie in the bass clef and the treble clef. We can do it anywhere we like.
I'm
So
so jealous.
there are multiple ways of finding a short route. And part of my job, I think, is to connect students with I call it multiple ownership. So multiple ways of getting to success. And I find that at the stage when students learn to play pieces all the way through, so that's an important place. Oh, I can get through this piece all the way through. So then there's a kind of conclusion that in order to be successful, or the best way to be successful is to play your newest piece all the way through. But the newest piece needs very small incremental things. So even that, the idea of going from, yes, play the piece all the way through, that's a great way to achieve success. when you're starting a brand new piece, maybe playing only 2 bars until you have success is going to be better than trying to get to the end of the piece. You do, but you can't remember a single thing that you did along the way.
Hmm.
I find those kinds of things are helpful. The other one that I find thing that is helpful is doing things from memory and doing things with the book. So I have students who come to lesson, they say, "Oh, you're going to be so proud. I practiced the piece. I did it all the way through with the book every day." And I say, "Great, let's see what you can do." And it's as if they'd only practiced it once. And
Hmm.
what happens is that they're so intent on the deciphering portion of the reading task. So the brain is saying, "You're working really hard. You're working really hard. Yes, yes, you're reading everything." But the brain doesn't have time to absorb the information that you're reading.
Right.
So students have done this, got through the end of the piece for the whole week, but they can't play any of it. And I just go, "Well, did you close the book ever?" And they go, "Oh, no, I thought playing to the end of the piece was more important." And I go, "Yes, that's true. But where was your success?" And they go, uh, "Well, my success was I got to the end of the piece." And then I go, "But what do you remember?"
Hmm.
I go, uh, "Okay, whatever. Yeah, I
Yeah.
see." So there's just those kinds of things. The difference between playing the whole piece all the way through and working bar by bar, the difference between reading and playing from memory.
Hmm. Right. It's like while I'm listening to your sharing, I'm thinking like a lot of time the analogy I use is I'll ask the student to repeat what I say in Chinese, and I'll teach them will say 今天天气好, and they'll repeat and repeat. And I say, yeah, now you're speaking Chinese, but do you understand what you're saying? So there's that oral memory. You repeat something over again, and your competency is at repeating the sound. And like you said, sometimes our brain is too wired to look at the symbol. That's like when I first tried to learn French. I tried to read every single word, but it really means nothing to me, right? But because my brain is so busy decoding the symbol, so that's just the first step of learning. And how do we make sure that kind of tie back to the mother tongue approach? Kids learn if they learn to read phonics while they're learning. They might be practicing to pronounce a certain word that they don't understand. Or they might be trying to write down a word that they know but with the wrong spelling. But that's all, these are both very, very important process, right? Part of the process of learning. I think for the teachers, we just need to make sure that a certain surface behavior when they achieve it, it doesn't mean that that's the end of a learning. Yeah. Do we have any questions? I'm looking at Facebook and see if there's any question too. So, people who are watching on Facebook, you can also post your questions on the Facebook comment window.
I start summarizing what we've done this morning because we're coming up at about an hour here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. If we summarize, for me, mother tongue can present you with some very nice stages of student development. But what I always want to keep in mind is that those stages aren't mutually exclusive places. They are our guidelines for how we might move through students' development, but we might find clues in one area that are going to help out another area um, in a really wonderful way.
Yeah. Um, and I think like what you said, those ways of learning can become options when during during a segment of guiding. We don't have to only use one way of teaching or one the other way of checking out their learning. And that could also be part of giving us more new ideas for the practice chart, the first topic we're talking about, right? Having multiple ways, using based on the your idea of multiple ownership, um, playing a song with eyes closed, uh, playing a song on Zoom for grandparents. um, how did you like about that? And using having those multiple means of learning or practicing to be um, the fun options for practice charts. Is there anything we're missing? Do we have any questions? Yes, Jennifer.
Um, I was wondering if you could talk, go back a little bit more to the practice plan chart, if you don't mind. I'm just trying to visualize what your notes and practice notes look like for the student. If there's just 3 questions, or you still have the days, or do you still put sort of set things to practice, or?
Sure. I mean, in my case, it still looks like a boring practice chart. It still is. We have warm up, we have scale, we have current piece, and I don't think it's really anything new. But I think it's the writing in the each part. I make sure there's a question, or I make sure there is something that the student said, something the student decide to work on in each category, so that it's more inclusive with their thinking, um, rather than, and I try to avoid putting just what to practice how many times. Instead is, how do you like this one to be done? How would you like, what are you looking for? um, I'm playing also listening to the CD or watching YouTube performance. I want to know how musical their family environment is, so that can all be included, right? So anything I do, I really try to avoid the student being a passive partner of the process. Yeah.
Yep. Yep, that's a good summary.
That's a good summary. Well, this has been so exciting. It's been really fun to have so many people chimed in on the topics we're talking about today.
Thanks everybody for joining in. Great to
Thank
see you.
you. Yeah, I hope to see you again. Bye.